want to tell a story today. It's a story of death, strange dreams, and the pursuit of glory, of forging a new path into unknown lands. You see, once upon a time there was a vision. A raven had brought with him a dream. The dreamer of this dream was a man of low ambition, yet he believed in Ud, the weaver, and he knew his life was about to change. Okay, I'm not gonna do that for the whole thing, so just cue the flashback.
1 year ago.
First of all, if that looked a bit off, it's because it was recorded in a different frame rate than what I'm working with right now. So maybe it looked a bit dreamy, shaky, blurry, whatever. That's why. And I don't have the know-how, the skills, and the software to fix that any better. Second of all, what and why was that? So I made that a year ago and put it up on the other channel I had at the time. More on this soon. And yeah, I'm also narrating this, by the way. Mostly because I happened upon some deer in the woods. Honestly, that's what made me go home and start putting footage together. But also because I wanted to experiment with darker sounds and the uncharted or mostly uncharted territory of ambient, trailer-ish soundtrack style music. I called the video Viking healing. Not because it made any sense, but because I randomly typed in this phrase in TubeBuddy and it told me it was a good keyword. Oh yeah, I used TubeBuddy in those days, but it did nothing for me and I saw zero growth or hits despite finding what the software told me were some pretty sweet keywords. But honestly, I think I'm mostly to blame for that. My niche, my concept, my execution didn't make it easier on anybody. I don't think the algorithms knew what to do with me. I still don't know what to do with me. Anyway, back to the story. At the time, I wanted to make some videos on the topic of healing, in terms of mental and physical health, the interplay between them, and the importance of balance and acceptance of who you are. That we're all different, and we each have our own path to forge in life, and to not compare ourselves and the outcomes of what we do too much with others. A channel focused on mental health and on staying healthy in an otherwise very unhealthy world. And some of that just through clarity of thought, hence the philosophy angle. If you're new here, I used to have another channel focused on philosophy and critical thinking, kind of. Anyway, the death I mentioned earlier is this first channel of mine. I've hit a wall with it and I have so many other things I want to work on that I just can't spread myself that thin anymore. The vision I was talking about is the dream of YouTube. My dream of YouTube. Of making a living out of doing something creative and meaningful. This is the glory part. Or the dream of glory. That hasn't died. I want to interject here because I want to make it very clear that the spoken part in the beginning was not meant to be serious, by the way. It was just some light fun. It was a spoof, a parody, and I realized that I might not be doing the best job of making that clear in the video so far. The tone was just meant to be playful, but if that doesn't come across so far in the video, it's only because I'm such a bad presenter. I promise I don't take myself that seriously at all, and I just have a lot to learn about how to be in front of the camera. That's all. It's harder than you think. The end of the year is approaching, and I think it's important to take a moment to reflect on things. In my case, it means asking myself the somewhat scary question of, have I actually improved this year? And if so, have I improved as much as I could have? If I want to do this, whatever this is, full-time one day, in one capacity or another, I have to show to myself that I can improve, that I can grow, learn, and just get better. Otherwise, I am toast, and the made-up Raven from the beginning was most likely just drunk on his own meat. So I figured, let's make something like that again, like the thing I showed you. Okay, why though? I thought this was a music channel, just saying. Let's play around with a similar Viking thing. And I say that in the biggest, most massive air quotes imaginable. 1 year later, to see if I have improved as a creative, as a movie maker, editor / maker of cinematic moments. Now the thing is though, I didn't happen upon any deer this time, so I had to improvise. But since there are no rules to this, and since it's the most unscientific experiment, comparison, call it what you will, that you'll ever come across, I can just use stock footage. I'll still make the soundtrack and edit the thing. This is a music channel after all, and not my personal creativity bin. So let's focus on the musical side of the experiment first and foremost. So, without further ado, because God knows the ado can get out of control here, just get to the damn point now and then, am I right? Here we are 1 year later, aka right now. This is part 2. This is the follow-up. Enjoy.
1 year later, aka right now.
Now, which one was better? And what are we really evaluating? Just the music? A little bit of the editing? Some of the filming? I don't know exactly. Because the thing is, I haven't been entirely honest. I've presented this video so far as if there's some sort of satisfying payoff at the end of the story here. That I am leading you somewhere worth going, right? To some important lesson or some conclusion that will be ultimately worth your while. But alas, story time is a lie. Here's the real story.
The real story.
You see, I had this thumbnail, the one you clicked on to get here. I made it because I had plans on making a video on cultural appropriation for my other channel, the one that is now supposedly dead. If the plan was to make a video on cultural appropriation, you might as well just dodged a bullet. Or arrow. Because it's quite likely that channel would have otherwise just died twice. Because I've been observing for years now how quote-unquote Viking culture and aesthetics have been in vogue and heavily commercialized, and I thought that'd be something, an interesting phenomenon to comment on. But with no channel to put the video on, I decided to scrap it. The video, that is, not the picture. I wanted to experiment, especially since I'm still very much learning with every video, and I basically have no clue what I'm doing yet. So I needed an excuse to use the image and to see if I could surpass my usual 50 or so views. So this whole video is just one big example of the sunk cost fallacy in action. Just a massive case study of what happens when you can't kill your darlings. Maybe there is a lesson in songwriting here after all, albeit a roundabout one. Don't get invested in parts that don't belong. Just don't make them fit. Move on. I'm still entertaining the idea of writing about cultural appropriation though, because the topic just fascinates me and it has for a really long time. Maybe consider signing up for my Substack if you'd be interested in reading about that. It's definitely a topic and a discussion where philosophy and music can come together and where they overlap. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the topic as well, so hopefully we can all see each other over there too. Anyway, another part of why I gave myself this challenge to remake a year-old idea was because I've been thinking more about sound design and ambient scoring. It's something I realized that I really enjoy doing, and the experience of scoring my own videos for the past year or so has taught me a lot. It's taught me that I have a sound, a style I wasn't even aware of, something I'm now trying to polish and refine further. It's also solidified something in me that I've always suspected, and that is that I'm probably more of a producer than anything else. But it's also made me aware of new possibilities for the future that I never even considered before. It's given me the confidence to entertain the idea that one day I could maybe even make soundtracks, like real ones, for commercial projects. Who knows? Don't laugh. A man can dream, drunk raven or not. Anyway, I'm definitely trying to include these elements in the music I'm working on right now. And for those of you who have actually seen my older videos, you might remember a Stream Theory episode where I emphasized just how much mood and ambience and texture will play a role in the overall aesthetic. It's all thanks to this stuff, what I've discovered doing YouTube, so it was a chance to practice that side more too. One could argue that working on those songs instead of 10-20 second snippets or intros here and there would be a lot more bang for the buck in that regard, but what do I know? Music is so personal, and this whole experience is just given me more confidence to just do what I like, to be something of a musical auteur, but without any of the talent normally associated with that term. But since there are no rules, why not? It's not about being right or wrong. There is no right or wrong in how music is written or composed, but rather it's about expression, about expressing what is uniquely us, for reasons that are personal to us and not subject to a framing of right and wrong or even good or bad. It resonates or it doesn't, but that's okay. Right? I mean, there is music that is amazingly well recorded and performed where everyone involved in making it has 10-20 times the talent I could ever dream of having, and yet the music does nothing for me. The bottom line is this: many of us make art because we need to, not even because we want to. And that is, if you think about it, a huge relief, because then there's no pressure. Success is not the point. Art is the point. Expressing what and who we are is the point. Setting the scene for these transcendent moments where we can be fully alive and embraced by the creative force that never fails to amaze and bewilder. So, if it wasn't clear before, it should be painfully obvious now. The so-called story here in this video is nothing more than an ill-conceived and poorly executed mess about how to make up a story as you go and fail miserably at tying any of it together. Is this about my failed YouTube channel or about my dreams of being a full-time creative? Is it about making Viking-like music? whatever that would mean, or a cynical attempt at squeezing the last drop out of the crumbling bandwagon that is Viking-like aesthetics and expression. How do you squeeze drops out of a wagon? Or about lamenting the missed opportunity to discuss the legitimacy in gatekeeping Scandinavian cultural expression. When you say Scandinavian cultural expression, do you include Sami expression in that at all? After all, they are the indigenous people of this region, and if anything, isn't it problematic to refer to so-called Viking culture as Scandinavian cultural expression? In doing so, I feel like you're excluding a large group of people already marginalized in so many ways. I don't know, it might even be a very awkward 2022 summary / motivational, inspirational, let's go 2023 type video. Or it might just be all about doubling down on a thumbnail. Regardless of any of that, if you watch till the end, until this point right now in the video, you have my thanks. And my respect, because that was a mess in many ways. It worked or it didn't. Either way, I think you're in a much better position to let me know than the other way around, so please do. Please do let me know. But it was something different. Hopefully parts of it were still interesting, entertaining, or at least worth the time you took out of your day to get to know me better. To be honest, I had some doubts about releasing it because maybe it was just too weird, hard to categorize, figure out, and understand where I was even going with stuff, and the tone of it I was unsure of, but there's no better time to experiment than when a channel is tiny, right? You see, I normally have this compulsion to tie everything together in some sort of cohesive and coherent story where the goal of anything is for it to have a function. That's why I'm bad at sharing and showing things that aren't relevant to what I perceive as the point of a video, or any kind of point. It's why I don't share my life in any great detail or talk about what I'm up to too much, but rather try to justify any such information as part of a greater story, lesson, or function as a means to something that is then important and valuable, rather than ever being valuable as just that, if I do end up including any of that stuff. Because otherwise it feels like talking about nothing, like awkward small talk, as in having no real point, just being pointless. I don't know how to make videos like that. So that's why I have mixed feelings about this one. It feels to me like a video about making videos, essentially, of being on a platform where we're all forced to conform to the rules of being seen, of drawing attention to ourselves to some extent, but also like pulling back the curtain and showing you some of the behind the scenes of what's going on in my head and how I think about these topics and ideas that a lot of us interested in this stuff are struggling with, and I imagine juggle within ourselves too. But I also have a pretty loud voice in my head saying that was just really self-indulgent and pointless. And maybe it was. Because this wasn't really about a thing or an idea or a concept or anything like that. It's mostly me blabbering about, well, me. But that blabber is the creative process in ways, isn't it? I mean, we all have to edit ourselves and make directorial choices along the way. This explains to me why I felt like so much time was spent justifying or perhaps even excusing what was unfolding as it was unfolding. It begs the question, though, with all these doubts and borderline neurotic self-reasoning processes, wouldn't it be better to just settle for like a 2-minute video on how to make Viking or paganish like sounding stuff? If the point after all was just to primarily gain some attention with a specific thumbnail, why not just save yourself the trouble? I'm just saying. Also, this was never mentioned, but I'm pretty sure I heard some didgeridoo in the second one. On the topic of cultural appropriation and whatnot, I don't think Scandinavian pagans played those. Either way, here's to a better 2023. And thank you so much for watching and supporting me this year. I really hope I see you next year. And take care. Bye-bye. P.S. The second version of the two video comparisons was just just slightly louder. It's a cheap trick to give it some more impact and a little bit more oomph. Bye. If you're new here, if you're new here, I used to have another channel focused on philosophy and critical thinking.